Hi, I'm Edin Hacı Hafizbegovic. I'm a student of Sarajevo School of Science and Technology. Allow me to say how happy and joyful I am because you are here today with us. And my question would be, it's obvious that we do have three ethnic groups in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And you said that we must build democracy, we must build democratic institutions, and I would most definitely agree with you. But how is that possible with one side, one nation, one ethnic group opposing to that idea actually threatens the mere existence of Bosnia and Herzegovina? And one hypothetical question, if I may. What would happen to an American senator or American governor which is acting most disrespectful toward American flag or American statute or American nation? Why I'm asking this is because we do have Prime Minister of Republika Srpska here, a very important figure, who is acting very disrespectful toward Bosnian flag, toward Bosnian nation, statute, insignia, and so on. So, and most definitely, no kind of a sanction is put upon him. And will you encourage the international community or High Representative to put any kind of sanction upon him? Thank you very much.
You started by asking what happens in our country. You know, our country fought a civil war. Our country had many different challenges to its authority over time. And it is something that has to be overcome. And I do think that one of the best ways of changing the approach taken by leaders is to work to change the attitudes of the people that those leaders represent. That's why I think moving toward the European Union and NATO as a means of unifying the nation makes so much sense. Certainly the United States has spoken out and will continue to speak out against anyone who undermines the progress and stability of Bosnia-Herzegovina. But ultimately, the decisions about moving forward have to be made internally. Outside pressure, outside criticism has a role to play, but it's been my experience in working with many nations coming out of conflict over the years that eventually people have to sit down and work it out themselves. Now, how do you do that? Well, I think you have to do it on two levels. You have to do it on, yes, the leader level, and that's what I spoke to the tri-presidency about today. And I was very, very clear that there have to be actions taken that move the country toward greater stability, not destabilizing the country. But it also has to happen at what we call the grassroots level, the sort of citizen level up. And I don't know what is already going on here. But I think there needs to be an organized effort to try to bring people together to sit in the same table. And let me give you two examples. I did a lot of work in Northern Ireland, which had what were called the Troubles, where the Protestant and the Catholic communities did not want to live together and spent time fighting each other and killing each other. And I remember holding a meeting in Belfast in Northern Ireland, probably 12, 13 years ago. And I invited women, again to go to the women's point, I invited Catholic women and Protestant women to come and meet me together. Those women had never, ever sat down with a woman from the other community before. And I began asking them, you know, what do you fear? What are your fears? Because so often it's fear that drives people to make decisions that are disruptive. And one woman, a Protestant woman, said, "I'm afraid every morning when my husband goes to work, he will not come back home because he will be killed." And a Catholic woman said, "I'm afraid when my son goes out at night, he will not come home because he will be killed." And I said, listen to each other. You have the same fears. You have to work together to overcome the danger and the conflict. And over the years, because they were forced to sit together, and not just the leaders, because very often the leaders respond to a minority of their population. We have a saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The people who are the most extreme in any community speak the loudest, get the most angry, and politicians sometimes gravitate to respond to that instead of trying to be statesmanlike. So yes, you have to work with the leaders, but what we did was to create many groups where people began coming together to work on issues. If you don't have a job that's not in Northern Ireland a Catholic or a Protestant issue, and it's not here a Bosniak, Serb, or Croat issue. It's an economic issue. And you need more economic opportunities for everyone. So I think the outside can criticize and will, and maybe even try to take some actions that might or might not make a difference. But ultimately, leaders and citizens have to figure out how you overcome this. And you therefore have to be able and willing to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So those, Northern Ireland women and men who, like you, are not really of different ethnicities, but are of different religions, which so defines your life and so defines who you are historically, they finally decided they could have a better future working together than arguing and fighting and killing each other. So the killing has stopped here, but the cooperation has not taken hold across those lines to the extent it needs to. So we are more than willing to work with groups here, to work with universities and schools, to come up with ideas where we get people to have to talk together. I'm not saying it's an answer to everything, but I don't see any answer without it being a part of what you do. And I hope that with the new government coming in, with some of the statements that I've heard from some of those who've been recently elected, we have a chance to really work on this together. And I pledge to you that we will.
Thank you for this message. Yes, the lady in the red coat, please.
Thank you. My name is Belma Karakash, and I am the student of the American University in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I have a question about what advice can you give to young Bosnians here who suffered through the past war about the segregations in our educational system? It's really a bad issue. What advice can you give to young Bosnians how to make our country more stronger and how to integrate our country without having those segregations in our educational system? Thank you.
That's a question that I think really deserves a lot of thought from your educational leaders and others as well. If you are so segregated during your school years that you do not have any interaction with people from another community, it's very hard to get the country as integrated as it needs to be. Now, people can not only do a better job of creating educational experiences, particularly at the university level, but additional extracurricular experiences like what I was just referring to. Look for ways for young people to interact across these lines and come up with organizations that bring people together around their interests, bring people together around some goal that is set, And we've seen where this can be very helpful. I'll give you another example from Northern Ireland. We brought people together around something very simple, building a playground in an area between two communities that were literally walled off from each other. Getting people from the Irish Catholic and the Protestant Catholic community to work together to build this playground. It sounds very simple, but it's those little things that can begin to break down barriers. So then when mothers and fathers brought their children to play, they had to interact with each other. I think that there is a long list of ideas that we can work with you on, that we can offer to you. But again, it has to be done by you. I mean, the United States can hope for your future, but we cannot make it. That is up to you. But we can share with you ideas of what we've seen work. In fact, what we've seen work in my own country. You know the history of the United States. We had slavery, we fought a civil war, then we had many decades where black people were not given their rights, where if they moved into a neighborhood, people would burn crosses on their lawn, or would move out so that they wouldn't have to live next door to a person who was black. So we know how hard this is, but I can only tell you that steady, relentless effort works. So now we have an African-American president. We have someone who could never have been elected in my country just a short while ago. And I ran against him, as you know. I tried to beat him, and he won. And then when he won, he asked me to work with him. Now, in many countries, that would still seem like such a strange idea. If you're in a political contest, it should be a zero-sum game, winner takes all. But that's not how we see it. And I'm often asked, how could I go to work for President Obama after trying to defeat him? And the answer is simple. We both love our country. And at some point, that has to be the mindset that develops here. And it comes from small steps, not just big ones, but small, many hundreds of thousands of small steps. And I hope that you will think about this, and I hope you will let our ambassador know how we can help you, because we have lots of ideas from our own experience in our own country.
Thank you. Lady, yes.